Give you some statements, you tell me if they're overreactions or not. Mac Jones has already won the Patriots starting job. Overreaction or no?
Overreaction still could be Cam Newton, and I think Cam Newton's still probably the favorite. They both performed well, as I understand it, in minicamp. I'm going to say it's an overreaction, though there will be, I believe, an honest competition for that job in training camp in Foxborough.
All right, another quarterback situation in the division. Dolphins should be concerned about Tua. Overreaction or no?
I think it's an overreaction if it's based on his minicamp performance. Through all those interceptions in the rain. I think the Dolphins are bringing Tua along. This is a developmental offseason following a developmental rookie year. I think it's too soon to be concerned about a player who came into the league injured in a year that wasn't normal for anyone. Let's see a real year first for Tua.
All right, and then speaking of a big year for another quarterback, Daniel Jones is the QB under the most pressure in 2021. Overreaction?
I don't think it's an overreaction. I mean, I certainly hear arguments about other guys, but he's right there in the conversation. Year 3 is big because this is the year after which you're eligible for an extension. The team has to start thinking about whether they're going to pay you or look elsewhere. They've built an offense around him. They have Saquon Barkley coming back. It's time for Daniel Jones to show that he's a franchise quarterback for the Giants, and if not, they have decisions to make next offseason.
It's interesting. Let me get a quick take on that before we do the picks from you, Chris Canty, because, again, you host the local radio show on ESPN Radio New York in the mornings, for those who don't know, DCR. Do you agree with that? Before I get your pick, do you agree that this is make or break for Daniel Jones and the Giants?
No question about it. Daniel Jones has to take dramatic steps forward. Otherwise, the Giants could be looking for a new quarterback as well as another general manager, because that's Dave Gettleman's guy. He took him with the top 10 pick. So a big part of it is Daniel Jones not throwing the ball to the other team, not giving the ball to the other team. Hopefully he'll fix that. But there are no excuses as to why he can't be much better in 2021.
Just so we're being fair, the Giants believed he was making strides in those areas last year before he got hurt late in the season.
Mike T, let me come.
The New Orleans Saints over the last 2 years have 25 wins, trailing only the Packers and the Chiefs. They are loaded on both sides of the ball. Jameis took a year back to get his graduate degree, learning from Drew Brees and Sean Payton. This is a team that's tailor-made to win right now. They have no margin for error at the quarterback position. The spotlight will be on Jameis Winston.
Former #1 overall pick, of course. Chris Canty, how about you?
It's Matt Stafford. I mean, the Los Angeles Rams traded 2 first-round picks to get rid of a guy that was under center for him this year when they won a playoff game, and guy that took them to the Super Bowl 2 seasons ago. Matt Stafford hadn't even won 1 playoff game his entire career. So the thought is that he's going to be a significant upgrade for them. You're talking about the #1 defense from a year ago and a top 10 running game. There really isn't a reason why Matt Stafford shouldn't be able to deliver in LA.
That's another #1 overall pick. I'll go with the guy who was picked #2 overall. I think you're all overlooking the most obvious one, and that's Carson Wentz in Indianapolis, who was a guy who is now being given everything, literally everything. You can't have things go worse and be a bigger part of the problem than he was in Philly and land in a better place than this guy did. And I think the obvious, when people talk about this guy having a big NFL career, if not now, when? I think that's the definition of pressure. To me, he's an obvious choice, Chris Canty.
There's no question. Carson Wentz has it all set up for him, including a head coach that actually believes in him, something that we didn't see at the end of his tenure in Philly. So, yeah, Carson Wentz, a lot of people are going to be looking at him. The thought is that he should be able to come in and be better than what they saw from Phillip Rivers. And Phillip Rivers had that team in a goal line situation away from winning a road playoff game. So, Carson Wentz, a lot of show and prove in 2021, too.
All good picks. I mean, the quarterbacks are under a lot of pressure, right? That's why they make more than anybody else.
It's interesting to me. It seems to me like you're acknowledging that my pick is better than your pick.
No,
and that was
I
sort of
didn't say it was better than my pick. I said they're all good picks.
All good picks.
Most pressure this season.
Rather than fighting Wednesday, Zach Lowe is listening closely. He's going to write this thing down in pen. Who's going to win it, Big Perk?
That's fine, and I'm going with the Bucks in 5. The Hawks might get swept. And there's no disrespect to Trey Young. I'm a fan of his and Nate McMillan. But the Bucks, look, Greeny, once they got past Kevin Durant and what he did, his historical performances, nothing is standing in the way of the Milwaukee Bucks. They're not afraid of anything. They got enough firepower. They're going to get past the Atlanta Hawks in 5, and they might sweep them.
All right, the Bucks don't stop here, says Big Perk. We'll keep a close eye on that. Gentlemen, thank you both. Again, so much more basketball coming up in this hour with one of the all-time greats, Magic Johnson, in our studio, live in 22 minutes. We'll ask him if the process is over. We'll ask him if Kevin Durant is the best player in the world. We'll ask him the one thing the Lakers can do to get LeBron back to the finals. All that and more. He's coming up live a little more than 20 minutes from now. In the meantime, back to the NFL, and the biggest questions are all about Aaron Rodgers. Will he show up at training camp next month? You know about the season that he's had, the offseason. You know about all those practices that he didn't go to. You saw all the pictures when he was in Hawaii. Then earlier this month, he misses the mandatory minicamp. That's a $93,000 fine from the Packers. Will they enforce that fine? Will they act in good faith and not do so? Jordan Love took all the snaps. Then last week, you saw the T-shirt. It said, "I'm offended." That's on a golf Zoom. That was on a Zoom with Phil Mickelson and Bryson DeChambeau and Tom Brady. And so he's there sending messages, and this is the where we are with all of this. So Dan Graziano, I guess it is worth coming back to you, because as I was reading your notes this morning, your notes this morning suggested to me more than at any time I've heard that you feel like there is a real chance that when all is said and done, Rodgers shows up at training camp, and to some degree, this all blows over.
Yeah, to some degree. And it's possible. Again, we're reading tea leaves, right? I mean, you mentioned in the last hour the country club membership in Green Bay that he renewed, and now everybody wants to know what that means. He hasn't come out publicly and said what he wants. It's possible he's dug in. I've been told by a lot of people throughout this process that he's dug in. But we don't know that for a fact until we get to training camp and maybe even the regular season and he doesn't show up. So there's a possibility that he does show up in training camp, that he makes some press conference speech about how the media made too much of it, et cetera, et cetera. If he wants to play this year, I think the Packers are taking the stance that it's going to have to be for them. And if he realizes that over the next month, then you could have a situation where they have to get back together and figure out how to win.
And I think it is worth pointing out that for however dug in he is, which is sort of a nebulous term, because he has not demanded a trade, right? Does that remain an accurate statement?
My understanding is he's not made an official trade demand, correct.
So that kind of leaves us, he doesn't want to play for them, but he hasn't demanded a trade, so it kind of leaves us betwixt and between. How do you see it, Chris Canty?
Well, I feel like Aaron Rodgers wants some guarantees from the Packers organization about when his career is going to end. Keep in mind, there's no guaranteed money on his contract beyond 2021, and so the Packers could go year to year and rent Aaron Rodgers, and that really doesn't give Aaron Rodgers any certainty as to when his time as the quarterback for the Packers is going to be over. So I think if Aaron Rodgers does come back and play for the Packers this fall, it will involve their general manager making some concessions. But I do believe the door is open for Aaron Rodgers to be able to come back to the Pack sometime later this summer and play for them.
They have had conversations this offseason about a new contract, and he has rebuffed their offers so